and welcome everybody to the second Organic Seed Alliance quarterly call. My name is Abba Kaiser. I'm the Assistant Director of Outreach for the organization, and it's my pleasure to be here being the facilitator to welcome all of our incredible guest speakers and Cathleen McCluskey, our Policy and Advocacy Director, to talk about the National Plant Germplasm and what's going on at the national level right now with our very many incredible guests that you'll hear from in a moment. But just a few notes about our quarterly calls. These are going to be once every quarter open sourced calls that focus on advocacy, research, and educational initiatives within the organic seed world. And we're really glad that you could make it to the second one here today. We had our first call on May 2nd on participatory plant breeding and a possible community of practice. And happy to see some of the folks on the call today from that call as well. We're also going to be starting to ramp up a monthly advocacy office hours series on First Fridays as well. So this is the first of hopefully many conversations that we'll be able to have around what's happening at the national level, and we'll also have a chance to go into some regional breakout rooms to talk about how that's affecting us at the regional level. So First Fridays at 9 Pacific are the dates to remember. Our agenda today is pretty robust. We're going to get into some policy corner updates with Cathleen McCluskey. We're going to go into our presentation with our 4 incredible speakers. Nico Enjalbert from SeedLinked, Mike Bollinger from Seed Savers Exchange, Sarah Dohle from the USDA, and Jim McFerson from the National Genetic Resources Advisory Council. We'll get a chance to go into regional discussion rooms, and there'll also be time for you to share your initiatives and announcements at the end as well. So we're going to kick it off with some community agreements. These are the Organic Seed Alliance community agreements for all of our gatherings. I'm wondering if I could get somebody to help me read these off. Any volunteers?
Sure.
Thanks. Thanks, Jared.
Should I read them all?
Sure.
Okay. We all have a role in tending the space. During this event, we agree to speak for ourselves and make space for others, be as present as possible, be aware of who is missing in each conversation, remember that no one has a monopoly on truth and everyone's experience is valid, critique ideas, not people, listen to our bodies and tend to their needs, give some grace for technical and logistical difficulties, and aim for connection, not perfection.
Thanks, Jared. It's always good to be reminded of those, especially the one about listening to your bodies on Zoom. Very, very important. We're going to start out with a little poll to get a sense of your experience with the National Plant Germplasm repository system, and we're also going to just get a sense of who's in the room and from where. So if you can take a moment to answer this welcome poll, should see a screen pop up in front of you here. Welcome, Georgina. So good to see you. Great. See some answers coming in. If you scroll down, there are 4 questions in the poll. Give you just another minute or so to answer those. All right. We have 25 of 27 reporting. So I'm going to go ahead and close the poll here. So we can see the results. Can you all see the results there? Yeah, okay, great. So it looks like, see if I can make this a little bit bigger. Oh, you can see it on your end, so we're good. You can see it. Looks like we've got quite a bit of NGOs here today. Welcome everyone, some farmers, gardeners. I'm curious for the folks who put other, if you can put in the chat which sector you're representing today. That'd be helpful for us to know so we can refine this question a little bit. Looks like most people have some experience with the National Plant Germplasm System. Some people have no experience and some here are experts. Looking at the speakers in the room here too. And then regardless of your experience, looks like 40% of folks said that the NPGS system could be beneficial to them in their work. And we'll share the details of where folks are coming from in just a moment. So with that, I'm gonna stop the share and I'm gonna toss it over to Cathleen McCluskey, our Policy and Advocacy Director, who's gonna give us a sort of a brief overview of the NPGS, what's happening right now, and OSA's advocacy efforts, along with the Seeds and Breeds Coalition that's reemerging at this time.
Great, thanks, Abba. Good morning, everybody. Afternoon to folks out east. It's so good to see so many familiar faces and also so many new faces. So welcome. Thanks for taking the time to join the call this morning to talk about a little bit of general advocacy work going on, but really to focus in and drill in on what's happening at National Plant Germplasm System right now. I know there's a lot of whack-a-moles, a lot of moles coming up that we're all trying to whack. And I think National Plant Germplasm System is really one that underpins all of our work, I would say, certainly all of our agricultural systems. So very timely. And yeah, I just appreciate y'all's time. So as Abba said, I'm Kat McCluskey. I work with Organic Seed Alliance. I'm our Policy and Advocacy Director. I've been with the organization for about 15 years and feel really honored to be leading our advocacy program. I won't cover more about the advocacy hours. I think that Abba set us up pretty well. I hope to see folks each week on Friday, or sorry, each month, the first Friday of each month. I will say this about National Plant Germplasm System as our focus for the call today. I see this as a series. A lot of what's happening at National Plant Germplasm System is emerging, much like many of the advocacy efforts that we're working on and many of the things that we're seeing in USDA, et cetera, right now. And so I would expect, or I anticipate this to be one of several conversations about National Plant Germplasm System that we'll be convening on these monthly advocacy calls. So when you see the setup, don't think that we're anticipating that we're covering everything, because that would clearly be impossible to do in 90 minutes anyways. And so yeah, so for folks that might be less familiar with OSA and our policy work, I'm going to pop our policy platform for SeedLinked here into the chat. I will share that all of our advocacy work and our policy work is participatory. And this policy platform we launched this in anticipation of a new farm bill coming out in 2019. And we continue to refine it. But you'll see on here that National Plant Germplasm System, is on our policy platform. It has long been part of our policy platform and portfolio here at Organic Seed Alliance. And it has long been a policy priority for the Seeds and Breeds Coalition as well. So I'll share a little bit about these reinvigoration efforts about Seeds and Breeds. I'm curious, as I'm giving this update, if you are familiar with the Seeds and Breeds Coalition work, the historic work, I'd love to know, like, if you have been part of that or if you're familiar with it, pop it in the chat if you don't mind. So the Seeds and Breeds Coalition is it was a fiscally sponsored coalition of groups, organic and non, focused on seed concerns as well as public plant breeding concerns, but as well as National Plant Germplasm System, et cetera. And that fiscal sponsorship was through RAFI, Organic Seed Alliance, and many other coalitions and groups, organizations. Public plant breeders had long been part of that coalition work. Several years ago now, the coalition dispersed its fiscal sponsorship out of RAFI. And Michael Sly, who was a longtime sort of leader of that work, retired. And so a lot of the work, the policy work that had been prioritized in Seeds and Breeds Coalition went ad hoc and continues to be ad hoc through Organic Seed Alliance, through National Organic Coalition, through National Sustainable Ag Coalition. I know the folks at Ujamaa have been working on really similar efforts as well. And so a small group of folks came together about this time last year, wanting to reinvigorate that work since so much had gone ad hoc, and we know that more groups around seed are forming, and more folks are involved in policy advocacy work, and we wanted to sort of see if there was desire to pull that group back together. So those have been ongoing conversations. Organic Seed Alliance hosted an in-person conversation about that and meeting about the reinvigoration efforts just prior to the Organic Seed Growers Conference this past February in Corvallis. Out of that came a small, was sort of a volunteer, I am trying to remember, a coalition of the willing, a small group of the willing, to move forward the topics that were brought up during those conversations in February in person, and to continue to move forward what that coalition could look like, and to be engaging and expanding out the conversation to groups. Of course, things have changed with the new administration taking over, and massive disruptions at USDA. So I think I'll leave Seeds and Breeds Coalition efforts there. I will say National Plant Germplasm System is also part of those conversations, of the group that has kind of self-organized coming out of that. And we can continue to talk about that. And in fact, if folks are interested in learning more about Seeds and Breeds efforts, please drop in the chat. But also, I know there's a poll and place to drop suggestions for future quarterly calls. And if that is one that we would want to focus on, please let us know. So I will, let's see, I'm just keeping an eye on the time here. So I want to just give a little overview of sort of what we're seeing as Organic Seed Alliance going on in the National Plant Germplasm System. Essentially, like I said, it's been a long policy priority for OSA. We've been long concerned with the sort of stability of the system, and transparency, both in data as far as how the system is functioning and the health of the system, but also sort of removing some of the barriers to increase transparency in folks requesting seed out of National Plant Germplasm System, et cetera. And OSA does not stand alone in those concerns and those advocacy efforts. That's certainly been coming out of NSAC, the National Organic Coalition, American Seed Trade Association as well, and several other groups. So in the 2018 Farm Bill, the Farm Bill directed USDA to develop and implement a national strategic germplasm, or a plan for the National Plant Germplasm System. So a strategic plan. And in response to that, ARS MPGS did develop this comprehensive 10-year-long National Strategic Germplasm and Cultivar Collection Assessment and Utilization Plan. And that was done in collaboration with the National Genetic Resources Advocacy Council, NGRAC, as well as other stakeholders. That plan, as far as we know, as far as conversations that we've been engaging in, has not been implemented. And this sort of precariousness of the system prior to the new administration taking over. Thank you, Abba, for dropping that link to the plan in the chat. We've had sort of this concern about the stability of the system, and then we're seeing in USDA lots of layoffs, of course, lots of budget issues and decrease in budget. And so advocates are just, Organic Seed Alliance and others are just really concerned about the health of the system. We're sort of hearing bits and pieces from folks who are concerned within the system. And we've been trying to work with USDA and others to get data as far as what's happening, like how many layoffs is NPGS facing, what is the budgetary snapshot right now, how can we best support strengthening and stabilizing the system in this environment. And what we are finding is there's very little data that's being shared. There's very little transparency. We're really struggling to understand the state of the health of the system. And so this is, again, one of the reasons why this is the focus of our call this morning. That said, there are some great efforts that are happening, of course, that are future kind of focused, and we'll talk about that. We'll hear about one of those projects and some of those ideas and opportunities on community science and sort of, some of the rethinking there on those. So we'll hear that from our speakers, today. I do also just want to share, and maybe some of my team at OSA could drop some of these links in here in the chat for folks, but along with this USDA restructuring, of course, or along with what's happening at USDA, it was just announced on July 24th, a massive USDA restructuring that I'm sure many of you heard about. Amongst this restructuring is the closing of Beltsville. And the Beltsville location, of course, is an integral part of the National Plant Germplasm System. So this raises a lot of concerns. Prior to that, back in March, when we started seeing a lot of the freezes in RFAs and a lot of the sort of talks about gouging of the budget and things like that, the American Seed Trade Association sent a letter to Secretary Rollins about National Plant Germplasm System, concerns about the system and wanting to make sure that it's well supported through this restructuring process or through these changes in the administration. And then, of course, earlier this month, and maybe folks have heard about this, but on July 8th, the White House released an American First Memorandum for USDA arrangements and research security. I see Abba highlighting that. I'm sure you're dropping that in the chat as well. So this memo having some potentially pretty large impacts to ARS on a whole. We've heard that there have already been direct impacts to ARS staffing coming out of this memo, and we're still kind of waiting to see how and if this will be reflected in RFAs moving forward. So I do want to flag all of those things. I feel like each of these links that Abba has just dropped in the chat for us could be one entire day conversation that we could be having as a community. So I want to get this in front of people's eyes in case it's not something that's on folks' radars. But these are all very emergent, and these are all things that OSA is tracking, and I'm all ears. So if there's work that you all are doing around these issues, please don't hesitate to reach out. I'll drop my email in the chat, but you can certainly find me all over the OSA website as well. I know that's a little bit of a fire hose. I also feel like I am not here I don't have great news. I'm sorry. That's not a lot of great news, but we will hear some bright spots here. I know from Sarah and Nico and Mike about their project right now. So with that, I'm going to just shift into introing our speakers. And we'll definitely have plenty of time for conversation, Q&A, small group breakout, like Abba said, here towards the second part of the call. So we're joined this morning by Sarah Dohle, Nico Enjalbert, Jim McFerson, and Mike Bollinger, as Abba shared at the beginning of the call. And yeah, I'll just give brief bios maybe. Sarah Dohle manages the USDA National Plant Germplasm System's bean collection in Pullman, Washington, which conserves over 17,000 accessions of beans, 51 species from 110 countries. The germplasm is dispersed freely to breeders and researchers to develop new bean varieties and knowledge. And prior to working for the gene bank, Sarah taught in the plant science department at Delaware Valley University, worked in biotech startup in Boston, and studied lima bean breeding and genetics in California. Thank you so much, Sarah, for joining us this morning. We're also joined by Mike Bollinger with Seed Savers Exchange. Mike has long been connected with Seed Savers Exchange. He served as a member of SSC's garden crew and contracted as a seed producer for more than a decade. He's collected as a primary producer of transplants for Seed Savers Exchange plant sales with his wife, Katie, through their certified organic farm, River Root Farm. As the co-founder of an agricultural solutions company, Mike has provided support to Seed Savers Exchange on greenhouse design and organic production practices. And he's not only gained a practical understanding of organic and sustainable growing practices, but has also dedicated years of service as an active member of the board of directors for organizations focusing on farmer education services and local and regional food systems. Thank you, Mike, for joining us this morning as well. And Nico Enjalbert with SeedLinked is also going to be speaking with us. Nico brings a broad vision and passion for what is possible in the seed industry, founded on his years of private sector plant breeding in multinational seed companies in Europe and in the United States. His expertise in data architecture, crop modeling, fundamental breeding techniques, and participatory breeding strategies, coupled with management and plant breeding program development, find full expression in his continuing work and development of the SeedLinked platform, which I imagine several of the folks on the call are familiar with and maybe even engaging with. And then finally, we're joined by Jim McFerson. Jim serves as the chair of the National Genetic Resources Advisory Council, NGRAC, which advises USDA leadership on conserving and utilizing genetic resources vital to food and agriculture. Throughout his career, Jim has focused on advancing research and extension in plant breeding and specialty crops. He formerly directed the Washington State University Tree Fruit Research and Extension Center and managed the Washington Tree Fruit Research Commission. Earlier, he was a research leader at USDA ARS in Geneva. And Jim holds a PhD and a BS from University of Wisconsin-Madison. Okay, little fellow Badger. And a master's in from Texas A&M. And Mike remains very active in National Plant Germplasm committees and research initiatives. So really grateful to have you here with us this morning as well, Jim. And with that, we're gonna hear from these folks about efforts and visions on National Plant Germplasm System. And I think we decided, Sarah, that you're gonna get us going, and Michael is queuing. And I'll leave it to you to take it away, Sarah.
Thank you. All right, setting up my speech. For time, Mike, can we forward to slide 5, the blow up of the origins of crops? Thank you for this opportunity, for being invited to speak with you. The work that Organic Seed Alliance does is so important, and your support for the Gene Bank really means a lot. So I'm Sarah Dohle. I manage the bean collection in Pullman, Washington. And I'm going to talk about a wonderful, exciting project we're working on. That's like really a bright point in a whole bunch of challenges that we have at the Gene Bank. So what you're looking at here is the origins of this map shows regions of the world where many of the crops that we grow originated. Where a crop comes from is also where much of the genetic diversity of that crop comes from. And genetic diversity gives our agriculture system resilience to prevent another epidemic crop failure, like the potato famine or the southern corn leaf blight, and it makes our food system more nutritious and delicious. And you can see the US is not the origin of many of the crops that we depend on, but still our farmers have access to these adopted varieties. Next slide. And access to these plant genetics, which were used to breed US crops, has come in a large part from the USDA National Plant Germplasm System. This is a network of 22 gene banks, which maintain seeds and plants at these locations across the United States. This incredible system maintains over 200,000 different crops and their wild relatives, including over 600,000 kinds of plant germplasm. And we freely distribute over 200,000 samples a year to breeders and researchers who continually create regionally adapted crops as human needs evolve. It's a national treasure made up of global resources, and it operates more like a library than a vault, in that it is an active collection continually adding and sharing seeds. Next slide. However, we face daunting challenges. We have inadequate gene bank operational capacity has resulted in losses and deterioration of germplasm quality due to aging. Once these seeds die, we cannot get them back, and whatever novel, potentially useful genetics they had will be lost forever. To avoid losing important germplasm at random, we are doing this crowdsourced characterization community science phenotyping project that I'm going to tell you about. Which increases our phenotyping capacity, so at least we know the potential of what we're maintaining, and we can make informed decisions about prioritizing the research. The gene bank system has tens of thousands of germplasm samples that need characterization information, and we lack adequate space, staff, and other resources to grow these samples. Next slide. So we've partnered with SeedLinked, founded by Nico, who's on the call too. It's a startup company, which many of you are familiar with. Him and his team have cultivated a network of over 10,000 volunteer growers who run plant variety trials around the world. SeedLink has developed a user-friendly smartphone application for trait data collection with a social network component, so growers can answer each other's questions and build community. This map shows the current US-based volunteer network. It's actually a year outdated. There's more volunteers now. And this project will bring together the gene bank's diverse seed collection and the SeedLink growers to generate multi-environment trait data at a fraction of the cost of traditional research. Next slide. So we did a proof of concept project last summer just with beans, right? Because that's the collection that I manage for so many wonderful and important reasons. So there's 17,000 accessions. We distribute around 5,000 a year. It's one of the more used collections. However, we only have capacity to grow about 300 samples or regenerations a year in our greenhouses. And these numbers show the potential value and the challenges of the collection. So we lack the staff and field space to grow and characterize the bean collection, which I can speak to from firsthand experience. Next slide. So this bean pilot from last year. Next slide, please. It recruited 200 volunteer growers in about an hour, and that just demonstrated how popular of a project this can be. And these are some of the images that were generated by growers from last summer, which are better than the images of the beans that I'm taking in the greenhouse. So it's a popular idea, and the data that's being generated is really, really great. So volunteers collect trait data and location and time tagged photographs, which have the added benefit of being able to extract data such as stress and pathogen symptoms on the leaves and developmental rate relative to local weather and climate, which with machine learning has potential to increase knowledge of regional adaptation of crops. So it's just an incredible resource. Next slide. So this year, what we're currently doing is we recruited the vegetable curator from Geneva. So we're doing winter squash and tomatoes, and we're also doing ornamentals from Ohio. And it's really testing the SeedLinked platform and the volunteer network for their ability to phenotype and generate useful data. This data is then being converted by the SeedLinked team into useful format that we can upload into our GRIN database. Next slide. And so that phenotype data is going to be available to the researchers and breeders. So they don't have to choose seeds blindly from our collection, and we don't have to, and then as a curator, because I can't regenerate all of my collection, I can prioritize those that have been more beneficial across the country. So we're getting this huge amount of information back, and the volunteer growers are getting to keep and share seeds. And so part of this plant conservation or genetic conservation idea that we're doing here in the gene bank, we're doing in the fields across the country now. So it's a win-win all around. And we're working with Seed Savers Exchange. Nico is working with them. And so if there are any varieties that do exceptionally well in this pilot study, then maybe Seed Savers Exchange could add them to their catalog to make them available to home growers and gardeners and farmers, because that's not what the gene bank is doing. We're trying to preserve the most broad genetics for breeders and researchers. But if there are good genetics in there, we want them to go out to the growers. So that's a short summary because I want to leave time for others. The rest of the slide presentation just shows some of the data from this summer, if you want to scroll through. So we have quantitative data and some more photographs of the beans in the field. I'm particularly excited because we're doing tepary beans this summer, which is a drought-tolerant relative of common bean native to the Southwest, with exceptional potential for yield under heat and drought conditions. But a lot of growers aren't familiar with it. So through this project, we have almost 200 new people growing tepary beans and taste testing them. So we'll be able to add that data to our gene bank and try to get a new climate smart crop out there for everyone. So last slide is just the team that's working on this crowdsourced characterization project. So myself, Yuma, and Becky Povilis from USDA, and Nico from SeedLinked. So thank you all.
Thank you so much, Sarah. I'm seeing a lot of love for your deck in the chat. Really beautiful, really exciting project. Appreciate you giving us the overview of it and getting into what you're excited about as well. Mike, would you like to queue up your slides next?
Yeah, I can do that. Right. Can you see that?
We sure can. Looks great.
Okay, great. Love it. Oh, let me go back here. Okay, so yeah, I also appreciate the opportunity to be here with you on this quarterly call. I'm going to share a little bit about our ADAPT program and how it's grown into what I feel like is a pretty powerful tool for connecting our seed bank with the communities of people who actually grow those and steward those varieties. So it's a program really built on curiosity, collaboration, and as you'll see as we kind of get through this, a whole lot of people saying, sure, I'll try that. You know, the community science is one of our core strategies at Seed Savers Exchange for decentralized stewardship. It's how we activate our collection, not just by growing it out here on our farm in Northeast Iowa, but by getting seed in gardens across the country. The goal is really to generate real world performance data, to connect growers directly with the preservation process and to begin kind of restoring those cultural practices that have historically gone hand in hand with seed keeping. So thinking about things like observation, selection, and the actual saving itself. So ADAPT is one of the approaches that we're taking to make this community science work scalable, repeatable, and really meaningful. It's a variety trial and access initiative, kind of like Sarah is talking about as well, that allows us to put seed in the hands of growers, to track the performance through a centralized platform, also SeedLinked, and feed that data back into our preservation work, our regeneration work, and catalog decisions. It's intentionally low barrier, designed to really invite participation from growers that may be new to seed stewardship, while still generating what feels like structured, actual, and data for our team. So why does ADAPT matter? As many of you likely know, we're facing similar issues to what Sarah was speaking with. We've got 20,000 varieties here of heirloom open pollinated varieties that we're maintaining, but also as well garlic, fruit trees, horseradish, alliums, sunchokes, tubers, a diversity of crops. And our goal is really to increase access and use of the material. So through the catalog, through the exchange, through our Herman's Garden donation program, and working also directly with folks that are specifically interested in things that accessions that we have. But really, no matter what the where that goes, we often are looking for a more robust performance information and data on the accessions that we have. So, we're getting a lot of questions like, what grows well where I'm at, what varieties are showing promise in drought. People are looking for culturally relevant varieties or accessions that, that grow well in different regions as well. So those are things that are hard to answer when trials are limited to a single region or a single season. So, we do have regeneration protocols in place, informed by viability testing, documentation, and our collection priorities. And that structure helps us manage the demands of maintaining the collection that we have here. But there's always gaps, right? And so those gaps become critical when resources are tight, timelines are short. So this is really where ADAPT for us adds real value. Doesn't replace our internal strategy, but it really enhances it. So, looking at, regionally distributed, what slide am I on for? So, looking at, the value of, again, ADAPT is for us, it's collecting regionally distributed phenotypic data. ADAPT helps us identify, what's thriving in diverse climates and production systems. It helps us surface accessions that might have otherwise gone unnoticed, gives us stronger justification for why we're regenerating, scaling, or reintroducing specific varieties. And beyond the data, ADAPT is a way to rebuild the practices of seed stewardship itself. For many of the participants that we have in this program, this is their first exposure to seed trials, and often it's their first step towards saving seed. So that process of growing, observing, tasting, selecting, it reconnects people to a role that many of us have forgotten that we're meant to play, right, as a community. And so it's really vital to our mission as the regeneration work, in addition to the work that we're doing here on the farm. So this slide is just looking at the growth of our collection from 1981 to 2005. So early on, there was a huge influx of accessions and donations coming in with limited capacity to be able to document those well. And so, a little bit about the evolution of ADAPT, which for Seed Savers Exchange started in 2010. So if you're looking from 2010 to 2016, we were sending paper surveys by mail. Then we moved to online surveys with SurveyMonkey, which was better, but still limited. A real turning point came in 2019, with the adoption of SeedLinked. In that first year, participation jumped, 82%. And for the first time, we had real-time feedback, right? And structured data sets and a collaborative platform where participants could start to engage. And since then, it's really become the backbone of our evaluation work through ADAPT. So fast forward to 2025, this year in support with the USDA collaboration, we've more than doubled our reach from last year. We've got over 1,460 participants, nearly 10,000 seed packets that were distributed, 265 unique varieties trialed, and 111 of those, from our seed bank. So that's more than 3,200 trials that have been run. And since the beginning of this program, 471 unique accessions have been characterized. And that, as we have, amplified and synthesized the work and as the technology has changed, that's only happening more quickly. So each of those trial adds data, helps strengthen and understand the collection and builds a clearer picture of, what performs well, across geographies. So for us, how does it work? From the grower's perspective, they sign up on our website, they select crops they're interested in. For each of those crops, they receive, 3 curated varieties along with trial instructions. They plant it, grow it, harvest it, evaluate it based on the traits that matter. So things like yield, earliness, disease resistance, cracking, flavor, that information is logged in SeedLinked, where it's visible to other growers and accessible to researchers as well. The process, I think, is really straightforward. But it yields valuable insights, especially when repeated across hundreds of gardeners, throughout the country. So, one of the key strengths of ADAPT is that it generates data from across the US, not just our farm here in Decorah, right? And this geographic diversity is really critical. A variety that excels in Maine, might struggle in Arizona. What performs well in the Pacific Northwest with mildew pressure might, fail entirely in Iowa humidity, which we are ranked with right now. And so, that shift to SeedLinked was really a turning point for ADAPT. It gave us a platform that was structured with real-time data and collection, something we really couldn't manage at this scale, with those earlier tools. So participants record both, quantitative and qualitative traits, things like plant height, earliness, disease resistance, flavor, and what they feel like is overall performance. And beyond that data, again, it really creates a dynamic knowledge sharing space. So growers post photos and comments and observations and recipes, which all really helps foster learning and reflection across those zones and growing styles. And from the research side, SeedLinked really provides kind of an exportable structured data set like Sarah was talking about. Makes it easier for us to collaborate and use ADAPT results to inform our regeneration planning, breeding work that may happen other places. For us, things that we may include in the catalog. And because it's shared infrastructure, it's allowed us to collaborate more effectively across institutions. So, USDA is a good example of that, this year on their characterization project and with community and partners in parallel spaces. So for 2025, we prioritize crops that offered high value for preservation, adaptability, and community engagement. So we trialed things like amaranth and sorghum, two crops with deep cultural histories and broad potential, strong resilience. We included red okra, Siberian kale, snow peas for the diversity that we have within the collection and actual regional interest that we're seeing. Beefsteak tomatoes, melons, eggplants. Kind of round out that list. So, those are things with, high consumer appeal and real variability in performance. And so these crops let us collect, again, meaningful trait data while creating excitement and curiosity. A couple of things that have already come back is we've got we're doing a golden ponderosa beefsteak tomato that one of our growers in Pennsylvania is a farmer and works with chefs. And they're just, they're elated with this golden ponderosa tomato. Also have a Hellrose spring radish that in the trials that we've done here was very slow to bolt as we went along. And so those are just, anecdotal things, but evidence-based is coming back, from those trials as well. So, all this feeds back into our core preservation work. ADAPT really informs the different pathways, accessions that we regenerate can take. Surfaces standout performers, again, for the catalog or for the exchange. It strengthens our varietal identity, and through this data, but also through the stories, the photos, the recipes, and things like that, which is a really significant part of the work that we're doing as well. And so it creates really that feedback loop, right, from seed bank to the grower and back, and reinforcing that our mission through that use. Yeah, so again, it's just to continue. We're working with, this is for us a really easy way for folks that don't have seed saving experience, but want to be involved and want to do something meaningful. And we're seeing that, as the word gets out there, it really activates folks, in this distributed conservation work, on their terms, in their gardens, in a way that feels meaningful, and creates real value for organizations, is a great way to be able to be in that space. And I'll leave it at that. I got a few other slides, but I'll just kind of leave it at that so we make sure we have time.
Yeah, thank you, Mike. Really appreciate you giving us an overview of the program and the efforts there. Nico, I'm gonna queue you up, and I am gonna just do a time check. For folks on the call, we are gonna have Q&A, and we are gonna hopefully do the regional breakout rooms, but we want to hear from our last two speakers here, Nico and Jim, before we head into that. So with that, Nico, go ahead and take it away.
Hi, yeah, thanks so much, Mike and Sarah, and obviously all the OSA. It's really an honor to be here, and I'm Nico Enjalbert. I'm from France originally. I've been leading the SeedLinked platform and project since 2018, working on it since probably 2012. But SeedLinked really, as Mike and Sarah show it, it's a collaborative platform to do collaborative research, but really it's built collaboratively. I don't pretend to be the owner. It's a collaborative work and so many people Seed Saver has been really the foundation of creation of seedlings since first discussion in 2017. Thanks to all the initiative of ADAPT, we were able to find funding in the last 7 years, and so much of their support and Sarah and energy and piloting with USDA led to many opportunity. And so from here, our journey really started in 2018 with ADAPT. As Sarah mentioned, in 2024, we were able to do a pilot with USDA, and this year was really scaling up this germplasm characterization with the platform. And quickly, really the center mission of the work and with SeedLinked is how can we build a low-cost model and tool that allow us in this budget constraint and to create this enormous data that we need to evolve through change, and really with center aspect of collaboration and diversity is at the core of everything, like because with a low-cost model, it's allowed to trial crops that will never be characterized. It will allow farmer and people who don't have a voice to suddenly have a voice on what worked well for their region and so forth. So from here, I'm just going to dive concretely on the ARS project, so the 2025 project, and really show kind of what the work that Sarah and Mike talk about. So the ARS project was really, okay, can we bring at least 1,000 grower to characterize 150 accession with USDA and improve the characterization process with some funding to learn, better understand the dynamic of how many grower do we need to characterize, how many accession, participation dynamic, and so forth, and data integration to system like USDA or Seed Saver. Mike showed already some of those numbers, so I'm not going to go over it, but we had an overwhelming participation as we reached close to 1,500 grower, and I will show more other data. We use a novel statistical model that different scientists built and with SeedLinked pioneers since 2018, where we can have large amount, let's say Sarah has 20 tepary bean, and obviously a grower is not going to plant 20 tepary beans, so we allocate a random combination of 3 to at least have between 20 and 30 replications. So each of the 20 accession of tepary bean from Sarah is tested in at least 20 to 30 sites. We use a platform, SeedLinked, to crowdsource, and it's based really on from a ground up of growers to facilitate them to enter data, so to be simple, enter scoring, track date, image, trial condition. I'm not going to dive into this today. It's just giving a quick snapshot on how we look like. More interesting to look at data here today. We are at a midpoint here in terms of data collection in this 2025 project. We have participation rate around 31%. It will reach 55 to 60%. And we have already had more than 4,000 image, more than 8,000 rating, close to 5,000 comment on this specific project. That's about 80 data point per accession. That should jump to double. We also had a lot of exchange in the feed, more than 80 posts a week. And here is some, maybe I can go quickly here in data, but through the trial, we have different participation rate, different crop are more popular than other. So you can see we can have from 132 to 260. Each one have different entry number. Each one have different participation rate right now. And so we are really analyzing all this data to better understand how can we be more efficient in terms of like, maybe we don't need a grower accession ratio of 33. Like we don't need 33 grower per one accession, but maybe 9 is enough. Or maybe we don't need 300 data point per variety and maybe 50 is enough. And so all those different trials help us kind of build a system to be the most cost effective, the most efficient. And so that we have so much learning that is happening. And so it's super exciting. It's not only building the platform, but it's understanding how can we build efficient models that are cost effective. I want to show
And
and
Nico,
really,
I just want to interrupt real quick. I'm just doing a quick time check. If there are
Okay.
specific things you want to cover about the collaboration, now would be a great time to move into that so we can get to Jim's before Q&A.
Okay, I'm just gonna give a quick and concrete example on how we work. Here we
Great.
have a snow pea from this year from Adapt. It's almost completed, and so now with result we can, or Mike can look at flavor and with his team and really quickly make decision of which one was the most flavorful and the best and where. We can really quickly look at each data set and each accession and looking at all the picture of that are posted by the network. And it's pretty amazing how all this picture and quality. And then this LLM AI model, we just analyze all the text comment by strengths, weaknesses, so you can really look at information here. And then, as mentioned at the feed, we have so much discussion from all this is just a feed dashboard, but you can see all the posts and sharing experience, asking question for each of those projects. And so I just want to quickly wrap up before on really funding all these initiatives, starting with SBR grant, from investment, from different revenue. This year was funded by the RSX, but we have for next year really trying to find different funding. I don't know if the time, but please, you can ask me to stop if I'm over time, but it's really important to understand the cost that it required to do this work. And I really think we can move really from more government to more community supported. So many insights that lean toward that. I'm just going to go quickly, but so many motivation factor from the network, and really we feel that the network see a lot of value of participating, from expert knowledge, fun, amazing seed. So really enjoy working together. And how can we pilot not only technical or platform, but also a business model or funding mechanism. And I feel there's a huge potential there. And I will stop there. I can, as it can trigger discussion here.
Thank you so much, Nico. Yeah, lots to discuss there. Appreciate that so much. And great, I see Michael's got Jim's slide up, and so Jim, I'll pass it on to you to take it away.
Okay, thanks. Really appreciate the three speakers with their complementary approaches to the important issues of germplasm conservation and utilization. I'm going to take a step back. I'll try to avoid too many USDA acronyms and that kind of stuff, but I do want to share with you what's happening at the national level and international level on agencies that are working towards the same ends, that is conserving and utilizing germplasm. I have a background both in seed and clonally propagated crops, so Sarah may recognize the photo down there in the lower left-hand corner. And so I will focus not just on seed crops, but really across life forms. If I could have the next slide, please. So overall, what is the Advisory Council meant to do? Advise the Secretary of Agriculture on activities, policies, and operations in germplasm conservation, looking at the acquisition, preservation, access, evaluation, characterization, distribution, exchange of genetic resources, all those things that are important to conserve and utilize germplasm. And our remit is across all life forms important to American agriculture, not just seed propagated crops, not just plants, but forest species, animals, aquatics, insects, and microbes. So we're doing our best to provide research-based and technical information for the USDA to do a better job. And we recommend research needs and policy on both international and domestic issues. Next slide, please. We go back to 1990, but unfortunately, due to administrative ups and downs, I'm not going to go through every point on the timeline, but there are some interesting patterns depending on the administration that's in charge in Washington. We've come and we've gone, but we really have had a period of the last 4 years of a lot of activity by the committee that is on the next slide. 13 members. And again, Sarah may notice her associate there, Paul Gepps from UC Davis. This is at the lab in Fort Collins, the base storage lab, cryopreservation, hundreds of thousands of plants and backup storage. Our membership comes from various categories, from the science community, from the public, and from public cultivar and animal breed development. Next slide, please. So what have we been able to do? One of the very first products we had was addressing an issue of real importance to OSA and other folks in organic systems, and that's access to non-GE materials. So they're preserved carefully. The result of this report, I think, was really an awareness of the importance and the critical need for best management practices, which now NPGS curators are able to adopt and ensure users that they're getting materials that to meet their market-sensitive needs. Next slide, please. 21 to 23, we developed and submitted several reports: microbes, livestock, native crop wild relatives, and algae. We have a separate report on each one of these important life forms and what the USDA ought to be doing to preserve them, not just in a siloed approach, but looking at ag systems and what, why are microbes important to the livestock industry? Where did our native crops come from? Sarah's slide was a beautiful shot of North America. We have very few. The rest of the world's got a lot. And even algae. So next slide. We'll show reports that we developed and submitted to NARI, which is our administrative board within the USDA and the Secretary of Ag. The 2018 Farm Bill was mentioned. I think Kat listed the 10 years work, and what the heck. We finally got a plan from the USDA ARS. Our organization, NGRAC, responded to that plan with constructive criticism, which is available online in a link that I can provide. And it's really interesting that many of the specific recommendations we had were what Nico and Mike were talking about, and that's utilizing citizen science, going beyond the siloed scientific approach that the NPGS has, and worked with public-private NGO partners in the effort to conserve and utilize genetic resources. We've also tried to ring the bell about expediting deployment. It doesn't do any good if you got a library and nobody takes the books out. So we're trying to understand how to better get these materials utilized. I think Mike and Nico have some really cool ideas on how we might do that. We want to also to engage more carefully, thoughtfully, with tribes, with native and indigenous knowledge. In some cases, the germplasm itself, there are certain communities that feel seeds are part of their families and don't necessarily want to have their families put into cold storage in Fort Collins. So we are, unfortunately, at this point, as Kat alluded to, there's a lot of nothing happening as far as we can tell at the USDA level, addressing any of the reports that we have submitted, addressing the strategic plan, despite its imminent need even 10 years ago. So I'm really pleased to hear the discussion today, get input from this group, and look forward to subsequent discussions, OSA folks, about how at the NGRAC level we can do a better job of advocating for needs among your community. I think that's all I've got. Yep, thank you.
Thank you so much, Jim, for giving us that overview, and also just for it's a volunteer position to serve on this advisory council. And I want to thank you for the time that you put into this really important work in the system. Excellent. Well, everybody who's still on the call, looks like most of you are. We're gonna open it up for question and answer now. I know we've been hearing from a lot of people. I'm going to stop talking. And if you have a question in response to any of the presentations or any of the things that I shared at the top of the call, please go ahead and raise your hand using the raise hand function that you can find at the bottom of your screen under React. Heron, I see your hand. Go ahead.
Sorry, there. Lowering the hand also is key. Thank you everybody for presenting today, and just so good to have this on our front of our minds. I'm wondering, how do I communicate as a user or a person who utilizes the GRIN system and finds it incredibly valuable? I've had some amazing interactions and really appreciative collaborations, and I've also encountered some bizarre inconsistencies and challenges, and to be honest, some folks telling me things that I was very dismayed to hear. And I'm wondering, how do I share with you folks directly, or who do I share with directly to say, here's some things I'm hearing, seeing, encountering. I have some suggestions. I haven't ever found the way to like share these things with somebody who is saying, sure, I'll put that on like the list of things that people should be talking about or hearing or something. I've heard a little bit of like, nice idea, but I don't have, kind of thing, whatever. But yeah, so I'm just wondering, how do we engage with you directly with what we're seeing that it works and maybe doesn't work? Thank you.
Go ahead, Sarah.
So often you'll have success maybe if you engage with the curator specifically for the specific crop, and different curators have different bandwidths, right? I manage one genus, so I have one of the simpler collections, and I have a really good technician, so I have a little bit more bandwidth, or maybe I have average bandwidth for the other curators. If it's a crop specific challenge, you can find who's managing it. Then their research leader above them hopefully is a research leader for a gene bank, but we have some research leaders who manage whole research locations, and the gene bank's only one part of that. So getting their bandwidth is harder. And so we're the scientific staff, right? And we're here because we have passion for genetic diversity and conservation and sharing this, right? And then there are the decision makers at the administrative level. And I don't know that I can give great guidance on that. I mean, the secretary, maybe Jim can.
Thanks, Sarah. And Jim, I see you off mute. Did you want to share some more?
Yeah, there's also groups called crop germplasm committees. There are some 44 of them within the NPGS. Each one has a chair and should have representation from the user community. Sarah's comments are right on target, but you could also search online and find for a particular crop, phaseolus or sunflower, whatever, who is the scientist that's in charge of that CGC, and appeal directly to them. Also, utilizing an organization like OSA with their connections is a good way to let folks know what your needs are and what the challenges have been.
Thank you, Jim. Heron, thanks for the question. Really important. I dropped the link to the Crop Germplasm Committee here in the chat too that Jim just referenced. And that's searchable. You can find, I think there's like 44 of crops represented there by the committees. Great. Thank you. David, I see your hand. Go ahead.
Thanks, Kat, and thanks everybody for your presentations. I just learned a lot really fast, so that was great. I'm not a breeder myself, but involved in seeds in various ways. And I guess any of you could speak to this, but Sarah, you used the term "lost forever," and so I'm just curious about how easy is it to really get to that stage? I mean, I understand the basic concept, but especially since some of the varieties that we have in our collection in the United States maybe are originated elsewhere, is there any possibility, or what's the possibility of getting, restoring or even adding to the biodiversity that we have currently, if it's lost forever from a specific place, for instance? Is it, are there ways that we can activate people or communities or networks to try and remedy that?
That's That's a great and important question. We are actively growing our collections at the same time that some of them are aging out of viability, right? So we're actively collecting Tepary beans from the southwestern United States from wild populations because those have not been conserved. And we believe they're going to have a lot of value for us in the future. At the same time, I have accessions that I can't grow because I don't have greenhouse space, and they're over 40 years old. They have maybe all the germination is lost. Okay, so I am prioritizing older seeds with less germination ability. If I plant them in the greenhouse and they don't germinate, they're dead, right? The financial, right, and resource and government limitations, right, of going to collect in foreign countries is challenging. Plus development has happened. So maybe where the beans were collected was a stream and now it's a cattle field. And we don't know what valuable genetics could have been in that, or maybe nothing of value in what's lost. So one thing, an idea that's been proposed is if the accession had been ordered by another researcher years ago, we could call them and say, hey, you got this 20 years ago. Do you still have it in your cold storage, or are you growing it? And can we bring that back to the gene bank so we have a backup copy? So we do try to grow enough seed that we can send it back up to Fort Collins, which is USDA location for long-term seed and clonal storage, as well as Svalbard in Norway. But we just haven't had time or space to regenerate all of our seeds yet. And not all the seeds are easy to work with, like beans. Like an apple tree is a lot harder to preserve.
Thank you so much for your question, David, and Sarah for sharing some of those details.
Can I just throw one comment in there in response to that? This is Mike.
Yes, please.
Yeah, so I guess, that goes back to, I think, the kind of original ethos of Seed Savers Exchange as well, is by keeping seeds in community, right? And so rather than keeping them in storage, is keeping them in use, and part of that ties to accessibility. And so, for us, that home place is the exchange, right? And a platform where people are, growing and saving seed in their own gardens and in their own communities, and part of, communities. And so it's like this bigger web. Right. And so even just within the exchange platform, right, we only have 350, growers that are, people that are listing seed, but there's, almost 19,000 unique varieties being offered, across all of those gardeners. And so it's a part of being, just engaging in that and having more people involved, that helps reduce the risk of something being the last of something that we can't find.
Thanks, Mike. Super, super important. I am also seeing a question in here in the chat from Nate Kleinman about GRIN website being pretty glitchy lately, and asking if folks on the call can speak to or know if it's getting worse, or if GRIN as a whole is under threat, or if it's going through some sort of transition. And I recognize if folks don't know the answer to that question, but I want to uplift it out of the chat here. And I see Jim flagging here that staffing issues could be affecting it.
It's not just could be. We know they are in some locations. We just don't know specifically individuals at individual locations. But overall across the system, there has been a loss of individuals with institutional knowledge and the requisite skills for a modern database. Those are not easily recruited or retained in the current atmosphere.
Okay,
I guess I would say too, that we built our own custom database at the same time that GRIN was being developed. And just a couple of years ago, we're looking at what a transition to GRIN would look like in order to be able to make the Seed Savers collection more openly searchable. And along those conversations with GRIN technicians was, you need, if you're going to do that shift, the shift is one thing, but then you're going to need to bring a staff person on to keep the software updated and the database running. And I think that is a real part of that.
Thanks, Mike. Jim, one question that we've had at OSA and some other coalition folks have been really trying to get an understanding of what the staff loss is. I mentioned it at the top of the call. Is that something that NGRAC is also, is that data that NGRAC is also trying to get a better, clear understanding of?
We're unable to operate formally right now because of the USDA's reorganization. We're not authorized to do any official activities. So we can't have meetings. We can't even discuss. Oftentimes, USDA employees are embargoed on what they can speak about. You referred to the communications office. So we really are struggling. ASTA, you mentioned earlier, has been working really hard to determine who, where, and what in terms of staff reorganization, but it's really been difficult and extremely frustrating. And there's really no indication that things are getting better, as if you look at the links that you've put together, it's things seem to be operating underneath a shadow.
Thank you, Jim. So I'm doing a little check here with ABBA. We talked about possibly going in, we've talked about breakouts, yeah, and I see folks having to hop off. I know it's a busy time of year, and also we're already past an hour. So I'm thinking, ABBA, looking at you, I'm thinking keep us all in one group. We can continue question and answer as a group. Okay. If you do have a question, raise your hand, drop it in the chat. I'm also, I'm wondering about maybe Nico, hearing from you. I know you cut your conversation a little short, but as far as some of like alternative funding models that you and others have been exploring here, I'd be interested to, I think folks on the call would be interested to hear some more details about that.
Yeah, sounds great. And can you hear me? Yeah.
Yeah.
And I, been in conversation obviously with Mike, with Seed Savers on and in different front, from investment, foundation, crowdsourcing. At SeedLinked, we tried, and we've been successful and less successful in different avenue. And in the fall, we did a crowdfunding from our user and supporter, and that was the first sign for us of like we were able to raise around $100,000 in 2 weeks, and to see how people are getting much more engaged. And I think as citizens, we don't need to wait for the government. We can be the government. And I see more and more, so many people from angel or from people who have money to garner and just want to push the needle. And so I think for me, as SeedLinked has shifted a little bit, kind of the strategy and discussion on could we potentially test different model? And I think one I really would love to test, and have feedback from all of you. I know there's drawback, any potential issue, but I would love to do a pilot of like how can we fund a project like the ARSX and adapt power by people, and if we have more than 90% satisfaction rate, for example, to date on this project, and if people contribute 1 coffee a month to this, the power is incredible. Like if you look at other citizen science project, many have more than 30,000 active people. I think about a precipitation network Kokoraz, who have more than 15 daily active member. But I think it's as a whole, we must kind of innovate in this front. And yeah, I believe we could get 30,000 people in this effort, and just as a dream. But if you put, like, if people contribute, if 30,000 people contribute a coffee a month, which is really nothing, and like I show, people get so much value out of participating to this project. They get seeds that they will never get. They get expert knowledge that they will never get. It's so much fun. Like I shared posts to Mike and other, like you can see, people love it.
Yeah.
And so you could really do a lot, and you could really
So Nico, is there I know that you're continuing to think on this. If folks, want to be how can folks get more directly involved with some of the work you're describing right now with SeedLinked? Nico,
yeah.
Is there a pathway, or can you drop something in the chat for folks that might be interested?
Yeah, I think people, if they're really interesting to help pilot this more crowdfund initiatives, really please contact me. I'm working actively on it with kind of a proposal I need to submit and discuss with Mike and Michael at Seed Saver and with Sarah before, and then from there, where can we go from next year and what's the scope for next year? So I think starting in September is gonna move quicker because trialing season is gonna start soon. So please email me. And you will see also an article on Seed World featuring this, as we are trying also to bring seed company to the game because they are the one benefiting and how they can contribute financially or other way.
Yeah, great.
So,
Great. Thank you so much. I see. So for folks that are still on the call, Nico dropped his email in the chat as well. And Sarah, I know we kind of started out with you and you didn't really finish your deck. And I'm just wondering if there's anything in these, anything additional that you want to lift up and share about the project or about your collection, or just in response in general to the conversation.
There was just a question in the chat from Theo. Great question. How can you share characterization data if you're not part of this project, either of these projects, but you're looking at MPGS stuff? Send it back to the curator. You've noticed there's glitches in the system. We have that internally. We are short-staffed. We don't have IT people right now. But we'll save that data, and when we are staffed, we will add that back up. And we have a long history of working with the cooperators who receive our seeds to put their data back in the gene bank. SeedLinked makes it more organized and easier for us to reach a broader network, but definitely share. We appreciate the phenotype data from all of our users.
yeah, and Sarah, also anyone can create their own trial on SeedLinked. If you're not part of those official trial, you can track with SeedLinked, and as soon as we integrated with Green, I don't know, with funding and stuff, but that would be pushed back to Green.
Yeah. I really appreciate you all hosting this call. You can ask your crop curators specific questions about how they are managing the collection. We're here to be scientists, but when IT limitations at our location affect the access to science from data that you've generated, that's important that you know that. So you can ask direct questions, and we can answer those.
Excellent. Thanks, Sarah. Really helpful to understand the pathways. The system is so large. There's so many different moving pieces. And so it's just really helpful to get a little bit more detail in how folks can engage more directly. So I'm hearing a lot of directly contact the curator of the crop that you're working with and that you have questions on, as an immediate pathway, and that these crop germplasm systems, the crop germplasm committees are still functioning because, Jim, is it correct? So there's a difference between NGRAC, that is a federal advisory committee that's appointed by the Secretary of the USDA. But the crop germplasm committees are different, right? They're not a FACA. And so are they largely still functioning?
Yeah, yes, it depends on the crops, as Sarah alluded to. There's differences among curators and collections, but yeah, they're full-time employees. They're doing their job. One of their jobs is to communicate with stakeholders, whether it's a small grower or the Syngenta asking a question.
Okay, great. Really helpful again to know some of the pathways of opportunities. We can pull together and add to these links some of the some of these pathways that are being described by Jim and Mike and Sarah and Nico too for follow-up and to post with the recording. Hello, people in the future watching the recording. All right, excellent. Well, I think that we covered questions in the chat. Abba, I'm looking to you. I think you have a couple of wrap-up slides. I think I'm going to pop it back over to you then to close us out.
Thanks, Kat. And thank you so much to Jim and Mike and Sarah and Nico for joining us today. And thank you for all of you. I know it's high summer, a hard time to get people on Zoom, so we appreciate your presence. And we hope, as Kat said earlier, that this is going to be the first of many conversations that we can help convene. I also wonder, Kat, if you want to give a plug for the folks who were at the IP symposium from the conference around our virtual follow-up there. We can post those details in the chat if we need to.
I do. Let me grab those details for a moment. I'll come back to me.
Okay, sounds good. I'm going to post 2 links in the chat here. One is just a quick wrap-up plug for us to have you join the Organic Seed Commons. Michael, I don't know if you want to take a few moments to just let people know about that resource.
Yeah, I'd love to invite you to join or revisit the Organic Seed Commons. It's a virtual community space for seed growers and plant breeders and advocates. If you're interested in the National Plant Germplasm System, which I assume you are if you're here right now or listening to this, you can discuss it on the Organic Seed Commons through the lens of a plant breeder or a policy advocate. I'm putting some links in the chat now to join those spaces. I'm also very excited to announce we've launched an organic flower seed space starting today for sharing resources, project results from our OSA-led research project. You can ask questions or start discussion threads. And if you're looking to build skills, we have our organic seed production course, which is free and self-paced. You can do it in your pajamas this weekend, or you can get technical support or answers to some of your toughest questions. We also have recordings from the Organic Seed Growers Conference there. And we just invite you to celebrate the summer with us, share a photo into the news feed. It really helps to brighten things up. We also have custom emoji reactions now in Organic Seed Commons. So when you get there, you can drop cool beans or the raised eyebrow emoji if that's what you're feeling. So that's Organic Seed Commons. Send an emoji in the chat right now. Let us know how you thought about this presentation today, and we'll see you online.
Thanks, Michael. And we've got a link in the chat as well for a post-event survey that really helps us, in addition to the emoji that we hope you're going to post, get feedback for our funders. We're really grateful to the TOP program, Transition to Organic Program Northwest, for the support for this event. And your responses to this post-event survey really help us to show the value of this work. So please take a few moments to do that, and the link I just posted in the chat as well. And I see that Kat has also posted the information for those who were present at the Intellectual Property Rights of Seed Symposium. We're really excited to be getting back together with the planning committee for that, including some of the folks on the call. I see Shanda Robinson Banks here as well. And Katie Peterman. So we're really excited about that. If you did attend that initial conversation and you want to be present for the virtual follow-up on September 24th, you can email me and I can send you the link to register for that free event. Also, just another quick plug. Again, these are going to become a regular first Friday convening with Kat to continue to talk about our advocacy efforts at OSA. Once a quarter, that's going to dovetail with the quarterly call. If you have a topic area you want to suggest for the quarterly call, you can fill out this form that I will post in the chat as well. If you or someone that you know wants to give a presentation that touches some of this work you think is timely and emergent, this is the place where you can suggest a topic area.
Thank you, Abba. Sarah, I saw your hand up and I see you off mute. Did you have something that you want?
It's just a little planting a seed of another idea. Something that was recommended by NGRAC was increasing our pre-breeding efforts because we have this hard to manage germplasm and it's not that valuable to breeders. But if we do a preliminary cross when we're doing a regeneration, then it's twice as easy to grow for someone else. But then people need to make selections. could this be a community where, and I also know there's a strong sense of participatory plant breeding, which is incredibly exciting. And so that could be a project that the gene bank and the public works on in the future in a beautiful way. So thinking of a happy note to leave on, we're excited to pre-breed and get that germplasm out to participatory folks.
Great. Thank you so much, Sarah. All
Another
right.
Another happy note at USDA is the national program leader for genetics and germplasm resources is in her office, Dr. Neha Kothari, fantastic scientist, very accessible, strong leader. We need to support her in her efforts as much as we can.
Thank you, Jim. Yeah, unfortunately, Neha was unable to join us. We did extend an invitation, and she wasn't free to join us, but hopefully on a future call, she could share more about the system, and some of her work and efforts there as well, if she's able. Excellent. Okay. Abba, anything else before we wrap up?
Let's all just unmute and give a big thank you to all of our speakers for coming today, and we'll see you on the next quarterly call.
Yeah, thank you so
Thank
much.
you.
Thanks for everybody's time.
Thank you, everyone. It's great.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
See ya.
Thanks,
Bye.
y'all.